77 hits. But when you factor in the fact that his career OPS plus was 82 and his career WAR is 45.6, can we please get over this idea that because he was Mark Belanger at shortstop that he's a Hall of Fame caliber player? Ozzie Smith's in with an 87 career OPS plus, but his WAR is like 76.9. So he obviously did enough, and I understand different era. Obviously, Smith played...
Well, not that different. They overlap a little bit, but yeah. Omar's very borderline to me. Luckily, he played so long that he got to the 2,800. Not luckily, he was in great shape. He kept himself in great shape. That's how he got to the 2,877. You talk to. This is another thing with the younger generation. They don't talk to the managers and the coaches and the players. They sit at home and they do all their analytical work, which is fantastic work. You don't get me wrong, but you talk to the people who play the game,
right,
who manage the game, who coach the game. They say Omar is a Hall of Fame player. So that has to count for something. Is what I'm saying. To me, he's a very borderline guy. I can go either way on him. His offensive numbers are, they're not Hall of Fame offensive numbers. That's clear. But there's more to it than that. The guy was a generational, ridiculously gifted shortstop, and he was a winner too. And I'll just go back to it. It's his managers, his coaches, it's the opposing managers and coaches and players. Their opinion matters to me. It matters a lot to me.
Right.
So,
as a voter, would you vote for him?
He's very borderline for me. Every year I go to 10, and he's right near the bottom of the 10. So if there's a year that so I think a couple times I haven't, and a couple times I have. So he's very borderline.
Now, one guy I want to.
I think I'll say this. If he doesn't make the writer ballot in the 10 years and he goes on to a Veterans Committee ballot, he'll get right in. They will put him in. The guys who are on those Veterans Committee, they're the managers. They're like Tony La Russa. That's how Baines got in. La Russa and Reinsdorf, and there was a couple of their cronies on that committee. And they did. I shouldn't say cronies. They just look at the game differently than the young analytical writers do.
No, I think you're
Tony
right.
La Russa, he'll fight you if you say Harold Baines doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. He's totally adamant that Harold Baines got more clutch hits than anybody, and yada yada yada. He'll go on and on and on about his candidacy. He doesn't buy any of this crap about. And you can probably catch the interview that he had with Russo. It was a live interview on Russo's show. I think it was at the winter meetings last year in Vegas. I think, but anyway, he got into it with Russo on TV. And I'll give Russo credit for standing up to it because Russo made all the claims that everybody makes. And Harold's number, I agree, Harold's numbers to me are very borderline. But you talk to Tony La Russa about it, he's adamant that Harold Baines is a Hall of Fame player. So, there's different perspectives. And as a voter, I got to take in all the perspectives. I look at the analytics. I'm grateful for all these people who've come along, all younger than me, but who've developed this stuff, and it's very informative, and it does help you evaluate. But you got to look at the guys on the field and what they're saying too. They're the players, they're the coaches, they're the managers.
Yeah, well, that's with you and I being in it.
Analytics people don't know more than the managers and the players. They just don't. They know the numbers and the trends and all that, and you can give good information to help the players. But you gotta listen to what the players and what the managers are saying too when it comes to Hall of Fame voting.
Well, obviously you've covered a ton.
I go to the opposing managers. Now, obviously Tony La Russa is gonna fight for Harold Baines. That was his guy. But talk to the other managers about him.
Right. Good points.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah, good points.
My ballot is kind of like a compilation of analytics of all the players that I interviewed and talked to in that era. Because these guys are on the ballot now. They're in my wheelhouse of coverage, so I should be voting on them. Not some 25-year-old who didn't even see these guys play. He's just going by numbers. There's more to it. It's not just numbers. It's what the guys who are actually on the field are saying about it. Thank you. I'll listen to them too.
Well, yeah, it's true. You've definitely covered a lot of games through the years.
Larry, you ask anybody about Larry Walker. Anybody who played on the Rockies, Gebhardt, anybody in their front office at that time, Tony Siegel, too bad Don Baylor's dead, but you ask anybody who was around Walker during his years, his peak years there, especially, I covered the Rockies, so I saw him daily. Everybody says he was the best player on the field. He was a Hall of Famer, Hall of Fame talent. The question was, he didn't always apply himself, or he was hurt. That's where the questions come. But was he a Hall of Fame talent? They will tell you absolutely. He's as good as anybody, Griffey, anybody you want to name. He had that level of talent, and a lot of times it did show up in the numbers. In his ratio numbers, definitely. The counting numbers, he fell short because, as Lewis said, it was 110, 115 games a year. You said
it was 117,
whatever it was. Yeah, he missed a lot of games. He did.
All right, let me add a couple of things. You're right, Tony. You and I have definitely seen a lot of games. Obviously, you a lot more than I have, but I've seen a few. And I do agree that you have to judge a guy by talking to the managers and the players. But here's a guy that's name that's brought up a lot. His name is Fred McGriff. What are your thoughts about Fred McGriff? Should he be in the Hall of Fame?
I kept voting for him.
Yeah.
He was my I didn't do steroids guy. He got penalized in that era because he didn't do them.
Right.
And his numbers fell short. If he had, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about I can't go with Bonds and Clemens because the numbers they put up, who knows, they're at least semi-fraudulent. And a guy like McGriff, who no one ever thought did anything, and yet he falls short.
What's funny about that, too, is if you look at the 94 strike, the season ends early. He hit 493 career home runs, I believe. If that season doesn't end early, he hits 500 home runs, we're having a different conversation.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there you go.
That's true.
Yep.
And
he was one who, again, and I'm not saying he was a surefire, hands-down, first ballot, 98% of the vote guy. No, he was kind of borderline. I'll say that. But I did vote for him, yes. And I think I do think when his name comes around in this, I forgot what they call it, the Modern Era Committee,
right,
is what they call it now. Mm-hmm. But it's basically a veterans committee. I think there's 3 or 4 writers on it, and then there's front office executives, and then there's there's Hall of Fame players on it too. But, and they always change, so it's not the same.
Let's review
every time. Every new it's every 2 years, and every 2 years the committee's entirely different, which is good.
Let's revert back to Lou Whitaker. Okay, I know that Lou Trammell's in there, Morris is in there, but do you feel that Lou Whitaker finally does get in?
I got to see who's on the committee.
Okay.
I think he's borderline. I didn't vote for him, and it was a mistake that he fell off the ballot. That was you could blame that one on the writers. And it was a little, and when people started delving into his career further, the analytics people, they did point out a lot of things that I would say I probably wasn't aware of. And his candidacy if he had stayed on the ballot, his candidacy would have grown and grown, I think. Kind of like an Edgar Martinez, and some of the other guys who really got, like Blyleven, got boosted by analytics too. Lou didn't get the benefit of that, unfortunately. But even still, all told, he's,
if you want to know,
he'll get in, but he's not he wasn't a slam dunk Hall of Famer, and I don't think it was that egregious. What was egregious is that he didn't stay on the ballot. That was a bad mistake by the writers, me being one of them. Was he a slam dunk Hall of Famer? Especially what we knew analytically at that when he was on the ballot, I would definitely say I would absolutely not. So we'll see where we'll see what this committee comes up with. I would probably, since he got named onto it, I'd say he's got a pretty good chance of getting named to it, like Morris.
If you want a really good note on it, I mean, Whitaker's career OPS plus is 117. Jeter's is 115. Whitaker's WAR 162 is 5.1. Jeter's is 4.3. I understand they're middle infielders, and they played in different eras, but Whitaker does, in fact, have a World Series. He has that. I mean, he has a higher WAR than Trammell. He's the 7th highest WAR all time among second basemen. And given WAR is era specific, given the fact that his WAR is 7th all time, regardless of eras, I think that should have, gotten him in a lot sooner. But again, Bill James didn't really implement this. He implemented, the idea of sabermetrics early on in the late 70s, early 80s. Whitaker was still an active player, so this conversation couldn't really develop until later on. But I think he belongs. The first piece I ever got published in Detroit sports media, thanks to Scott, was the Hall of Fame case for Whitaker, and he's got a higher WAR, I believe, than like half of the second basemen who are already in there. So I just think it's
he does. It is true, and I think since Trammell got in, and I think Lou belongs in there too. If Trammell's in, why not? Why not Lou? You can't argue against that.
All right.
They were similar enough.
Let's talk.
One gets in, and the other one, disappeared. It's crazy. But
let's talk about another former Tiger. You and I are.
We can correct that mistake now. So, I'm a Detroiter. I as a kid, before I became a journalist, I was a Tiger fan. So
yeah.
I hope Whitaker gets in. I do.
Well, let me transition to that. Okay, we're both Detroiters. What about Mickey Lolich? I personally think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. He ate up a lot of innings. He was clutch, obviously, in the '68 World Series. I think his numbers are worthy.
Yeah, I think he falls into that Jim Cott, just short of it. But the pitching qualifications have kind of diminished a little bit. So what did he win? 280 games. Ton of strikeouts. Was he third all time in left-handers and strikeouts? You can make a better case for him now.
Right.
Now, I have two other names on the modern era ballot that I considered other than Whitaker, and one is Dwight Evans. I think Dwight Evans, obviously, he played alongside Fred Lynn, and Fred Lynn isn't a Hall of Famer. His WAR is about 17 points higher or lower than Evans, but Evans' 67.1 WAR, that is a little bit lower than the average for the Hall of Fame right fielders, but that is a little exacerbated given the fact that Ruth, and other guys were out there, Hank Aaron and such, played out there. They made that total so disproportionate. But I think Evans belongs. And the other name I'll make. You can make
a good case for him. I wouldn't have a huge problem if he got in.
And the other name I'm pointing out is Thurman Munson. And hear me out really quick on Thurman Munson. And I'll refer back to a catcher a generation or two prior, and that's Roy Campanella. Roy Campanella, his career is very strange. He won 3 MVPs with the Dodgers. He has the 55 World Series. His career ended before he was paralyzed in an automobile accident. Or I believe it was in 57 he got paralyzed, and they honored him 2 years later. But that's not the case. Campanella had good year, bad year, good year, bad year. He was the catcher's equivalent in the 40s and the 50s of what Brett Saberhagen was about 30 to 40 years later with the Royals. Campanella's WAR is a lot lower than Munson's, and you can argue that his career ended prematurely due to injury. Munson's career obviously ended prematurely due to, he crashed the Cessna in August of 79 and he dies. The WAR is 46.1. The average WAR for a Hall of Fame catcher is 54.3. Again, a little exacerbated given that Johnny Bench and Gary Carter are 70+. They set the gold standard. But Munson's counting numbers, if you really want to go by it, a 296 batting average as a catcher is impressive. Or 292, I'm sorry. He was a good defender. I believe he won 4 Gold Gloves. He has the MVP in 76. It's the on-base percentage that year was similar to Elson Howard's when he won his MVP with the Yankees in 63. Why is Thurman Munson not in the Hall of Fame, and do you think he has a chance to get in on this ballot?
Yeah, that's a good question. That was long before I started voting, so I never had a shot at it. I never really studied his career that closely, but I'd have to take a look. I just listened to what you said, and I can't disagree with anything you said. Especially playing in New York, you would think he would have got a little bit stronger consideration. But we'll see what this committee comes up with.
All right, let me go back.
It's going to be interesting to see how that vote goes.
Let me go back to Lolich, Tony. Did you say you think he does belong in?
No, I think he's borderline.
Okay. So with that said,